buy side will always outperform sell side. And I'll tell you why. You're suddenly more credible in the eyes of a business owner, right? Versus someone who's just saying, hey, I will run process for you. It automatically puts you ahead of the game.
Welcome to a brand new episode of the M&A Mastermind Podcast presented by Cornerstone International Alliance. I'm your host, Nick Olsen. On this show, I get the opportunity to talk with the brightest minds in lower middle market M&A. Together, we discuss industry intelligence, deal management, shared successes, specialized expertise, and much more. If you serve the small to medium-sized business owner, this show will offer you tactics and insights you can use and implement now to become a master in M&A. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of the M&A Mastermind Podcast. On today's episode, we're diving into a question a lot of deal makers are asking right now. Is cold email marketing dead, or has it just fundamentally changed? Over the last few years, inboxes have gotten noisier, filters have gotten stricter, and people have gotten more selective on what they're willing to open in their email inboxes, let alone respond to it. Yet some firms are still quietly filling their pipelines with thoughtfully engineered and highly targeted email outreach. To unpack what's actually working and what's not, and how AI is reshaping this targeted outreach effort in the lower middle market, I'm joined by Manu Wali, co-founder and partner of Accelerate Group, where she helps M&A professionals and B2B teams build their outreach systems that actually adapt, scale, and convert. Manu, welcome to the show today. How you doing?
Thanks so much, Nick, for the introduction. Super excited to be here. I'm doing great. Love your podcast. And I know it's very valuable to a lot of M&A firms.
I appreciate that. Hopefully it is. And that's what we try to do here. And so we're going to educate the M&A community here today on a topic, like we said in the introduction, on email outreach and, what it was, what it is today, and, kind of talk about some of the stigmas that might be out there about it. But you started Accelerate, recently. Tell us a little bit about your company, why you started it, and what kind of problem you're solving for the M&A community.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we started Accelerate, all of us founders were at another firm for about 5 to 6 years. We only focused on deal origination for M&A firms, private equity, family offices. So doing both sell side and buy side work. That was very valuable because let me just say, we've faced every problem under the sun. And I think that's where the value is. It's not only from the successes and the wins, but it's also from everything we learned through our failures. And what I mean by that, there was a massive shift in cold outreach. That firm shut down, but we had all these lessons we wanted to take forth because we do think that we could be resourceful, proactive, and we did have solutions in mind. And that's kind of where Accelerate sort of emerged from. But there is a fundamental difference in our approach. We're not looking to partner with 6 M&A firms. We're looking for a very, very hands-on partnership. And what that means is we really need to understand what your focuses are. What are your mandates? What are your theses? Why are you going after certain industries? Do you have experience in those industries, right? And then also, what is your sales ecosystem? How are you taking your sales goals? Do you have CRMs? And I think a lot of lead gen, I hate the word lead gen, by the way, but a lot of firms are very generic, right? And they're just like, okay, we'll pass an opportunity, we'll blast an email. That's not our approach because we really need to position you strategically. We need to understand that when we pass you an opportunity, you have an ecosystem in place to convert it. Because it's not, at the end of the day, you're not going to care about us just sending you opportunities. You're going to care about whether they convert or not. So that integrated partnership approach is how we have kind of set Accelerate up. We want to make it very boutique. We want it to be hands-on. We're nosy and we're nurturing is what I call it. So that's kind of the background about Accelerate. And then obviously we're lucky that we have worked in the space for 6 years with over 7 M&A professionals. So that allows us to be very, very strategic within M&A outreach.
And, we talk about outreach and one of the, like I said, one of the things that you guys worked on in the previous firm and are, currently working on now is just cold email marketing. You hear it all the time. Cold email marketing is dead.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with that statement? If not, how has it changed? How has it evolved? Why is it still a viable, business development tool?
So I love that you bring that up because it has been such a hot topic for, I would say, last 2 years. So let me give you a little bit of background about why this statement became such a viral thing. And there's so many LinkedIn posts around it. It's because Microsoft and Google changed a lot of their policies in response to, I would say, the advent of AI, like being such a rapidly adopted phenomena for cold outreach specifically. Access became just so simple and easy, right? You have people data extracting, you have people blasting business owners, and it's not only in M&A, it's across the board. So you have to keep that in mind. So Google and Microsoft are like, our user experience is terrible because people are just being inundated with sometimes like really not relevant email. Like go through your own spam folder, right? It's like a lot of noise in there. So they became very, very strict, which would with what we call deliverability and inbox placement. So over, I would say, the span of a few weeks, everything that would land in your inbox is now landing in spam. So multiple lead gen, again, I hate the word, I'm sorry, agencies went under. They went under because now suddenly your response rate is tanking. So now everyone's like, oh my God, we're panicking. We're not getting responses. Cold email is dead, etc., etc. But the truth is, cold email is not dead. It's just 10 times harder. And I think everyone has to accept that reality. The checks and balances to actually make it effective is so nuanced and difficult, right? So if I were to just really summarize it high level, because if I went into the deck, I'd speak for days here and you'd probably check out because there's a lot of technicalities. But from just setting up an email, making sure the DNS is correctly set up, to having sure your data is 100% valid, to also your messaging, right? It has to be relevant to your audience. And that's why when I said we at Accelerate want to be very nosy and involved is because your messaging has to resonate. And it's not only M&A firms to business owners. It's like, if you are you a tech expert? Are you a tech expert in M&A? Do you use the language of a tech business owner for them to not only get the email, open it, but also be like, okay, Nick, you know what? I trust you with this. I think you are an expert in this space, so I'm going to actually respond. So it's such a layered process, essentially, that it is 10 times harder. But if you've done right, it is very, very effective. Like we've seen open like response rates between 3 to 7% on average, which is extremely high considering industry averages around the 1.5 percent. That would be like what I would say. It's definitely not dead. It is harder. And one other thing I would add to this is what works for one person will not work for the next. So it has to be customized. And the second thing you have to keep in mind is that what is working for you today will not work for you next week. So having a dynamic system that's constantly evolving is also very, very fundamental to success.
So I'm assuming Accelerate solves for that.
Yes, that is correct.
Which we'll dive into. So, but what are some of the biggest mistakes you're seeing firms make when maybe they're going at it alone, doing an outbound email marketing campaign and looking at getting directly to the business owner? Maybe it's, what are some common mistakes that you're seeing that affect the value of something like this?
Right. So I'll go into like, I think the basics, like there are a few categories. One is like they don't understand deliverability and how your email infrastructure needs to be set up. If you have a good tech background, that's great. You can set it up, but a lot of times you don't. Like, for example, there's this thing called DMARC. It has to be changed in the initial month, right? And it's directly related to deliverability. And if it's not set up, chances of you getting flagged are very, very high, right? So that's the first thing, setting it up, warming up the domain, making sure you have some back and forth in that inbox before sending out emails. Number two is, I would say, blasting. Like that's a big problem. Like people, you should not be sending more than like 20, 25 emails per domain. People make, like I've seen a lot of even infrastructure providers give you like 80 usernames per domain. Like imagine one gets flagged, your whole domain is flagged. It really makes no sense. So you have to be really conscious about how you're setting it up and how you're using your email infrastructure. The second thing I would say is generic messaging paired with AI. By the way, I'm a big advocate for AI in the right areas. And I think M&A is one space that's going to be safe from AI in a lot of ways because you can't replace the human sort of negotiation and partnership and hand holding that's required. But I think where people are like not leveraging it correctly is in messaging. I know for a fact now that business owners can read an email and be like, this is AI drafted. Like, it's so obvious. And especially like, I see that you had a coffee shop near on your street or you went to school. Like, nobody cares about this stuff. Like, that is so not relevant. Like, don't do that. You know what I mean? So this generic messaging using AI is really like an unhealthy tactic because not only is it going to like affect your deliverability and response rate, but you're going to put like, this is why Google and Microsoft do what they do. It's because of people like, employing such tactics. So I think getting like hyper specific with your messaging and really having that human element to it, like, I'm a professional, I know your space, I can help you exit because of XYZ. That's it. Like, keep it simple. And you only have like 2 minutes to get their attention. So really be conscious of what you're putting in there. So I think those are the two mistakes when it comes to email outreach. But I'm gonna put a third just because like this is very personal to me. And that is like, please, M&A firms, stop using Excel sheets to track your like deals and opportunities. Like, I can't, like, my brain can't handle it because so many things slip through the cracks, and follow up is such a important component of any marketing that you're doing. And I know that you cannot track that all in an Excel sheet. So having a proper CRM system for tracking, following is key to your success. So I would sum it up to those three.
Okay. Very, very interesting. Do you have a real life example of a campaign that worked exceptionally well for one of your clients that you can think off the top of your head, and why you think it was so successful?
Yeah, so I can give you an example of one of my still an active client. He's a long-term client. They are Canadian, essentially. So I will say Canada has a little bit more leverage than the US just because it's more of a blue ocean than US due to number of M&A firms in the market. So what we do is for his campaign, we go after very specific sectors and it's layered. And by the way, I can even show you his dashboard. He has 3 opportunities in the last week alone, the last 7 days. His average is between like 5 to 7 a week. Now, take that with a grain of salt. Not everyone's going to convert. Not everyone is the right fit. Not everyone's the right size. But quality comes after quantity, right? You have to kind of go through a process to refine. But coming back to your original question, so we were very focused on the sectors. When we did his messaging, we kept it extremely short. We did do A B test. One was slightly longer, one was slightly shorter. We always add case studies. Now, your case study could be a little bit more detailed, like they employed us, we did XYZ, and we were able to secure X amount of LOIs, X amount of offers, whatever you are legally allowed to reveal, right? That's one way. The other way is a little bit of status alignment, which is name dropping. If you are legally allowed to do that, you can keep the messaging shorter. We recently transacted X, Y, and Z in your space, and this is the outcome we saw. So, why is this extremely important? It establishes credibility and strategic positioning for the firm in front of the eyes of the owner. And that's why also being sector specific is important because that relevance layer has to be there. And I see a lot of people just put generic messaging and blast it out to 6 different verticals. That in 2020 would have gotten you amazing results. Today, you're not going to get anything, right? So I think that's where his success was sector specific, credibility layered in, but we did some testing and we kept it relatively short. Just a pro tip, Microsoft is very, very picky when it comes to longer emails and they will block you. They will block a Microsoft to Microsoft. And this is not even spam. They will prevent it even leaving your inbox. 60% of business owners have a Microsoft inbox. So
60%. Wow.
yeah, so you have to be very, very like careful about this. But I think that combination for him worked extremely well. And I think over the last, I'm gonna say 2 to 3 years, he has. I just checked his dashboard for 273 opportunities sitting in there, and even if you would say 50% qualify, that's a really good pipeline to work from.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and what about just whether it's a buyer, a seller, whoever it is, What have you noticed? What are trends, just response rates? You said responding in general, yeah, deliverability. Just what does that digital outreach response, ecosystem look like right now?
Yeah, so typically in the email outreach, it's like 1.5%. That's industry standard. Now, I'll tell you what will outperform. Buy side will always outperform sell side. And I'll tell you why. Now, whether you're a direct buyer, like we work with private equity as well, but let's say you're in investment bank or an M&A advisory firm that's representing a buyer, you will always have a higher response rate. And it's very simple why. Because like you're suddenly more credible in the eyes of a business owner, right? Versus someone who's just saying, hey, I will run process for you. It's like, okay, this person has a legitimate person who is interested in acquiring my business. It automatically puts you ahead of the game, right? And there might be that layer of like, some people don't want to, they know that the buyer is going to pay your fees. Like, that's the reality of it, right? But typically, we always see higher response rates for any buy side campaign. Again, it could be 3%, 5%, 7%, depending on the industry as well. There is a nuance. When I said industry, if you're going after HVAC, expect a negative 5% response rate. No, it doesn't matter who you are, sell side, buy side. It's because that vertical is saturated. Business owners are tired. Private equity is going directly after them. They get 5 to 6 emails from investment banks and private equity a day. They do not want to speak to you right now. We saw those trends in manufacturing about 2 to 3 years ago. So I think if you're in HVAC, I would just say pivot. Like pivot, find an alternative, like find an ancillary, a blue collar trade to dive into, because those your skill set still applies and so does your credibility. When it comes to sell side, I think the averages would be 1 to 3%. I think a 3% is a healthy rate to have. It's still much harder, but I think you can set yourself up for success by being very, very clear on who you're going after, like your thesis and why. Right. And now you might ask the question of, well, what if I want to enter a new market? Like, and I have seen people do that. Like, here, I really want to do M&A for, I don't know, HR firms as an example, right? You have to figure out how can you use your experience to mold it relevant to HR, and that is challenging, right? So that's one way where I could see you being more successful and sort of getting up on the higher on the response rates.
This episode of the M&A Mastermind Podcast is powered by Cornerstone International Alliance, where leading M&A firms come together. As part of this international network, you get access to global opportunities, over 200 M&A experts, enhanced collaboration and knowledge sharing, and some of the best M&A tools and resources available, all to help you take your firm to the next level. Ready to join this exclusive network? Visit cornerstoneia.com/new member today. What about just timing? And I think you mentioned it a little bit, but is there a how do you take timing into this whole equation? As when is a good time to reach out, or because I would imagine there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of noise out there. To get through it, is timing an issue, a concern, or how do you break through that?
So when you say timing, there are two things. One is like where the company's life cycle is in terms of like when should you reach out to them. Interestingly enough, I always find Q1, Q2, Q4 like better periods to reach out to business owners. Q1, I think it's like everyone's ready to go, everyone's excited, like new year. Q2, you'll see a slight slowdown just because I think people are either making a decision, like if they were, let's say, like an exit, they probably know if they're going to go in that direction or not by Q. So you will probably see not as much of a positive response. You might have a high response rate, but I'm talking about like actual converted opportunities. Q3, forget it. Everyone's vacationing. Always, like, or they're going back to school, their kids are going back to school, they're a little bit busier than usual. And then Q4, because everyone's starting to really like lock down their financials and see, okay, end of year, how are we performing? I see a lot of people start making those decisions in Q4. It's like, okay, are we going to do this or are we not going to do this? So I think that's from the like just from a perspective, what we typically see. But if you're talking about specific, this is like really technical, but I just think I'll add it, which is like specifically what days and what times to reach out if you really want to get granular with the email outreach side of it. I think you should also look at habits of that vertical. This is a really interesting case study. We're working with a firm that's focused on like car wash and collision. And we've been told like a lot of these people are actually active on the sites, like the owners. So either reach out after 5 p.m. to them or before 8. And like do not reach out to them on Mondays because that's typically when they go back in and they're extremely busy. I found that really, really interesting. I've seen that with medical practices too, as well. Like reach out super early in the morning. That's before like the influx comes in. And there are also other granular nuances, but then I'll like be quiet because this can go on forever. Is like for medical practices, for instance, like reach out to the administrator. Don't reveal the but like the office administrator, but reach out to them to say like book a call or schedule a meeting about, let's say, a partnership collaboration, because doctors don't check their emails, right? So it's really interesting. You can get very granular with timing and approach.
And timing and when and all that stuff has to have some sort of automation component to it, I would imagine. So, how are you balancing, using automation tools, but also maintaining that kind of human, component to it? And obviously with just efficiencies and time saving and yeah, deliverability and timing of delivery, like all that plays a role in automation. But if you're going at it manually, that's also not the right approach.
No, manual. So this is I think a very, very big struggle with a lot of smaller M&A firms, especially boutique ones, where it's like, how do we sustain, nurture our pipeline and be consistently relevant in the eyes of those business owners, especially the ones that are not ready to exit tomorrow. And given that if you're looking up upwards of EBITDA 1 million, you're not going to have anyone ready to exit tomorrow. It's a process, right? What I would do is the human element should remain when you're dealing like let's say you are and I are on a phone call, or where it's a real-time interaction, right? That's where your expertise, the human element, absolutely 100% is going to, I think, move the deal forward. Where I think a lot of M&A professionals waste their time is like scheduling calls, doing follow-up, nurturing campaigns. All of this is where you need to leverage AI and automation. And there are 100 tools. Like you have email outreach tools that can not only do the outreach, but then set a 60-day follow-up nurture campaign. And you can add layers of conditions. Did they respond? Did they not respond? Was the sentiment positive? Was the sentiment negative? I can give you an example. Like Instantly is a tool that I truly really love. You can add sub campaigns where, for example, the AI agent can read the message. And this is, I would say, use it for not interested versus interested. Interested, again, let's go back to human element. But let's say they're like, not interested, and maybe you want to have like you should not just like leave that as is, which I'm sure 90% people are like, okay, whatever. But you can automate that, say, hey, if the person is not interested, or they're saying not right now, or they're saying this, respond with ABC. Like that's how granular you can get to make sure that you are not leaving anyone hanging, but you don't have to waste time doing this as well. There's AI call scheduling. We're building actually an AI agent that reads it, looks at your calendar, sends them 3 times immediately. Why is this important? There is a correlation between your time to respond and somebody dropping off. The longer you take, you're going to lose a lead. Like this is, so we want to make sure like you immediately respond, immediately book a call. So there are AI agents for that as well. Your newsletter, that's a great way. That's something that I'm sure a lot of you are automating, but it should be automated, right? Another really good place for automation is Simdex. They are some very, very, very good AI agent tools that do the work of an analyst. Now, that doesn't mean you just do it and be like, okay, peace. Like, it obviously go through it, give your own expertise in there, but they are creating such amazing sim decks. There's like deliverables AI, there's super agent. Super agent is really good for analysis. It's expensive, but it's very, very thorough. And I did like a test on it for like my investment strategy. And then I showed it to a wealth manager and they're like, wow, that's like pretty spot on. So I would say look at your schedule, See where you have administrative tasks that are not moving you closer to revenue, and then add on a layer of automation or AI support capabilities.
Well, you kind of made my segue into AI and what that looks like, and what are ways in which, when we're talking about email marketing. And yeah, like I said, you kind of hit on some of that, but you know it is becoming more prevalent just in everything we do, whether it's writing emails or content, or like I said, creating marketing documents, or creating a buyer's list or outreach or whatever the case may be. How are you seeing, and what are your recommendations on AI in general as far as this topic goes, and where should our listeners be looking at to help leverage AI to make this a more successful proposition?
Yeah, I think there's like this fear. It's like everyone has a love-hate relationship with AI right now because like, oh, it's gonna take over. Like before panicking, I think do your due diligence on what it actually is and what it actually does. And there's some very complex capabilities and then there's some very simple capabilities. Where you should not be using AI is for your messaging. Like just please don't do that. It sounds like AI. And if you want to use it, then what I would recommend is get your first draft from AI and then rework it. Like it should sound like you. And when you're reading that messaging, look at it like, hey, if you were a business owner, if you receive that, how would you feel? Are you like, oh, this is like just mass outreach, or was it like, oh, this person really does want to speak with me? So don't use it for content stuff. Don't use it for like where I think your value is very, very important, especially in M&A. I just feel like you as a banker or an advisor, your your personality, your sales pitch, your that's very, very valuable and that's not gonna go away. And I think you should definitely lean into that. Where I would say like leverage it is like going back to that concept of there's like a really good book on it and I cannot remember the name, but it's like assessing the I think it's 2x is better than 10x. I think. Don't quote me on that though. But it's like really about auditing your entire like daily tasks. Look at your $10 task and look at your like $10,000 task and look at your $10,000 task. As an advisor, your focus has to be on your $10,000 tasks, right? Whether it's building a relationship with a seller or a buyer or trying to get the financials sorted or making sure like all that nitty gritty stuff is done. That's where your focus is because that's closer to revenue. When it comes to, like I was saying, like the back and forth between emails, the appointment scheduling, the email outreach, the automated follow-ups, the like nurture campaigns. Do not spend your time over there when you know it can be done through either automation or a and like the tools that I would simply recommend if you really are an advocate of like, hey, I really don't have the budget to outsource this or don't want to or I really want to do it myself, then layer on like for email outreach, I'd recommend like Instantly, Woodpecker are great ones. Smartleads is a very, very prominent out there. I've used Sales Handy is not bad as well. All of them have their inbuilt AI tools too. So they have their AI capabilities of how to respond when this happens or how to respond when that happens. I believe that Instantly also has an AI scheduling agent now built in, if I'm not mistaken. So I would say like start pivoting those things. Number two is see how much of your CRM you can automate as well, right? Like, for example, if you're moving to different stages, you can automate a lot of the follow ups and emails. We've done that in the past for our own clients. We try to help them build their CRM to make it much more effective. Sometimes you need the personal human element, and maybe you just want to automate your task list, right? That could be a consideration as well. Analysis is one thing I mentioned earlier. Like I really am an advocate just because I've seen what the capabilities are. Obviously, your inputs are going to determine your outputs. So if you are really putting good inputs, you can get some very, very good analysis. And something that I personally love for advisors is having AI do an assessment of the industry, the company, any background that they can find before getting on a sales call. Like rather than manually researching it, you can have it draft a report in 5 minutes so you come super prepared on the call. So I would just do a really, really transparent audit of your whole process, your whole sales ecosystem. See what's taking up time that's not driving revenue directly, and then start using, again, there's a difference between automation and AI, but you can use a combination or them individually to start accelerating those processes.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, I love that, the non-generating or the admin type of tasks or where you're not meant to be spending your time, try to leverage AI and see what it can do for you to help and automate that. What are some other strategies or channels that complement, outreach most effectively right now, as far as, specifically the email marketing campaign? Like, what are some other things that complement that to kind of, level it up a little bit?
I love that you asked that because nothing works in isolation, and people think email is going to be a magic wand. That's not the case. It works in collaboration with a larger ecosystem. And people are like, oh, should I do this or that? I'm like, no, it's not this or that. It's this and that. So I'm going to start with my favorite, which is LinkedIn. And I'll tell you, it's layers. The first thing is like your LinkedIn profile. Please, like, have a good picture. Have a good cover photo. Like, I see so many people even without a cover photo. It looks unprofessional and it does not. And why is that important? It's credibility. Everything goes back to credibility, credibility. Remember, there's more competition, especially on the US side. They have to say, why should I pick you to sell my business? You have 5 seconds to convince them of that. So get your assets in order, right? So your LinkedIn profile, your about, I always say, have a lot of credibility in your about as well, right? So make sure that's in thing. And the second thing is, when you do an email outreach, you should always connect with somebody on LinkedIn. This is something you can automate, by the way. So if you're like, oh no, I don't want to connect with 1,000 people in a month, you can automate that. That's very doable. Connect with them. And why is that important? It acts like what I like phantom repo, or like a fifth hidden touch point, because now they're in your network. Every time you post content, it's a little bit of a push, a little bit of a nudge. And now coming to the content itself, this is such a good space for you to position yourself as a subject matter expert. You know what, people overthink this. Have a paragraph up, talk about a deal you just closed, 2 sentences around what you're seeing in the industry. It does not need to be a PhD dissertation, but LinkedIn is such a good complement to email. And let me tell you, 80% of people are going to look at your LinkedIn and your website. And if those are not up to snuff, they're probably not going to trust you. Because if they can't trust you to have your marketing assets the way they need to be presented, why would they trust you with exiting or like selling their most and one of their most important things in their lives, right? That brings me to the second thing, the website. Oh my God. This is like, invest in your website, please. This is important. It does not have to be super complicated. It does not have to have a lot of information, but it should be presentable, professional. And the biggest thing are your testimonials and milestones. What has been other people's experience in their sector or generally working with your firm? I think that's a big, 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 big game changer. Something else that I really like, one of our former clients did this. It's not, he puts it on LinkedIn, but you can also leverage YouTube if you want, is putting video content. Like, I find that to be very, very effective because they keep seeing your face. And like, that builds fandom rapport. Even if like Nick, let's say I'm watching your podcast, right? Or I'm watching you on LinkedIn, I'm gonna feel like I have a connection with you, even though like we may not speak for a year, right? So it's like a very interesting, like, psychological level of connection without actually having to put in so much work. So these are the, I would say, little things. So like, you have your direct email outreach paired with LinkedIn and a really strong website. And then one other layer, like I would add, is like, I think you should invest in newsletters. I think it's a really good way. But here, like, put effort into them. If you can segment your audiences by people who are not ready to exit, give them more exit prep advice versus people who are the right size, maybe just not like they want to achieve a milestone, maybe give them more vertical insights. Be a little bit more strategic with your content in your newsletters. I feel like that would be very effective. And lastly, is your events. Those, host a dinner with some business owners or something along those lines. I know a client of ours just did a really nice dinner after a tech conference with like 12 key, CEOs of large companies there, etc. So those are would be my recommendations. Have a multi-channel approach for deal sourcing.
Very, very helpful. And like I said, email marketing doesn't work on its own. Like any marketing tactic, you got to have a complement of different assets and tactics to make sure that they're all working together. The last question, Manu, this has been amazing. For our audience, what are the 3 best practices you would recommend that an M&A firm adopts when it comes to outreach in general, and what do they want to make sure, whether it's AI adoption or making sure their tactics are working together? Like, what are the 3 things that you would recommend that they should do day one to make sure that their outreach is dialed in?
Yeah, that's good. So what I will do is like step by step. This is what I would recommend. The first thing is I would do this, make a flowchart of your entire deal sourcing ecosystem from from how you're sourcing to actually you closing a deal. And that I mean every single step of it, right? Like sourcing, what are all your channels? Does it go into a CRM? What are the stages of your CRM? How are you collecting your NDAs? Do you do valuations before or after they sign an engagement letter with you, right? Is it something you offer for free? You don't offer for free. After they sign the engagement letter, what is your process all the way till deal close? I would say, first of all, get very clear on that and then get very clear on who you're going after. And the reason I say that is because you need to have a system to track what is working for you and what is not working for you. And I think a lot of people don't have that. And it's very simple. I'm actually saying the first step is just make a flowchart of your deal making ecosystem and then start layering in your channels. Okay, email, we want to have 3 email campaigns going after these people. We want 1 LinkedIn campaign. Then see what is performing. Is it entering the CRM? That's why you need a CRM. Where are you getting your deals from? Is it only referrals? That's risky because referrals is up and down, right? So I would say first step is do that. Second step is I'm gonna say second step is direct email. Because I do think I want you to think of it like once you have your whole thesis ready of who you're going after, think about this. I'm a $10 million CEO or like anywhere EBITDA 1 million plus, which is what you guys are going after, right? So like I need the chances of me responding to a cold call is zero. Like how many people pick up a random phone call, especially when sometimes it's like says spam or like that, right? Like it's not, so cold call is not there. LinkedIn, it really depends on the sector. I can tell you this, if you're in very blue collar sectors, LinkedIn direct outreach on LinkedIn is not effective, right? So now I'm thinking, where are the people that I want to go after most actively sitting and operating? Everyone is on email. Everyone needs email to function on a day-to-day basis. So we know that it is a very, very lucrative space to reach out to. So the second thing is get sorted on your direct email. And this is not blasting. This is curated lists, strategic approach, strategic messaging. So that would be it. And then number 3, I would say is see what you can automate versus what still requires your thing. So that way, when you're doing your channel approach, some of the stuff requires you to put like 20% of your time, but the rest you have a whole, and that's why I said first step, have your ecosystem laid out, go through it and see what parts of it helps you to reinforce your positioning and convert without you actually having to put that much manual labor into it.
That's tremendous advice, and really appreciate you laying that out there for our audience here today. Manu, this has been an amazing conversation. A lot of great things to consider and think about, but what I hear is email is not dead. So definitely consider it as a tactic. Tell our listeners where they can learn more about Accelerate and why they might want to work with you and your firm.
Absolutely. So we are available. Our website is accelerategroup.com. We do spell it with EXX. That's an inside joke, which I'm not allowed to share. But anyways, so you can connect with us on LinkedIn. Obviously, my name is Manu Wali. I have Sherry and Maria who also work with me. My email address is manu@accelerategroup.com. Why you want to work with us is because we can set up the whole email infrastructure with you, but we can go beyond that as well and help you develop your deal making ecosystem as a whole. So we do have that as well. We do leverage a lot of tech and AI capabilities. So if you need us to audit where you need more support, happy to do that as well. We also provide like M&A specialist, remote assistance as well, because like a lot of our clients needed that. We have done that. We train them and we hand them off to you, so you have a little bit more support. So we are very much a holistic solution depending on what your needs are. Feel free to reach out. Even if you don't want to work with us and you just need a consult, we're happy to talk.
Well, thank you for that offer. Yeah, go check them out. They do some great work, and like Manu just said, if it's nothing else, it's a conversation to understand. What should you be doing, and if it's something that works to work with them, that'd be even better. Thank you, Manu, again. That's all we have for today's episode of the M&A Mastermind Podcast. Make sure to like, comment, and share this episode. Send it on to anybody you think could benefit here from our conversation today. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast on our YouTube channel. Make sure you get that notification every time a brand new episode hits. Do not miss out on any of these great insights. And hopefully we're here to elevate your M&A practice. Until next time, everybody, take care. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the M&A Mastermind Podcast, and a special thank you to our presenting sponsor, Cornerstone International Alliance. If you enjoyed today's discussion, don't forget to like, share, and comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. We'll be back next week with more insights, strategies, and real-life experiences to help you take your M&A game to the next level.